I was there when Bobby Murcer drove in 5 runs when he gave Thurman Munson's eulogy.
I was there when Bobby Murcer drove in 5 runs.
Yeah, I was there when Bobby Murcer had the game-winning hit and drove in 5 runs.
Yeah, I was there when Bobby Murcer drove in 5 runs after the eulogy for Thurman Munson after his death.
The atmosphere for this ball game, clouded, obviously. Clouded by the loss of one of the most respected players in the game of baseball and the captain of the New York Yankees, Thurman Munson. The Yankees are under heavy emotional strain, and it's somewhat miraculous that they are able to come out and play this ball game tonight.
Thurman exemplified a family man, in my opinion. The way he was with his children, his priorities were always so straight. He was the guy that you wanted to impress. He was the guy that you wanted to have his respect. So to lose somebody like that, I think takes such a toll on everyone.
I remember the long trip, up to Canton, going to the church, listening to Murcer give the eulogy and speak on behalf of all of us.
That day we went to the funeral. Mr. Steinberg brought jets and flew everybody over to the funeral. It was a real sad day.
Obviously, to see the players coming together, and they had each other, which God bless them for that, but there was definitely a void, and I could feel it.
Did you ever consider canceling either last Friday night's game or tonight's game?
Well, Howard, I think we're all emotionally drained in the Yankee family, and yes, we did. But Bobby Murcer spent the evening at the Munson house Thursday night. And he came to see me Friday morning when we were talking about it with the Orioles in the league, and he said, Diane asked for one thing, that Thurman never quit when he was hurt, and she wants us to play, even though everybody on that ball club was hurting and has been for 4 days. She just didn't want them to quit. They're Yankees, and that we don't quit, and they don't quit, and so the determination was made that because of Diane's request to the team that we play, and you'll have to admit we've played them right to the wire every game.
Well, obviously it was one of the hardest days ever, but I figured if the Yankees could play the game, I could certainly watch the games.
I think it's the game most people ask me about for Bobby's performance and for the emotion that was going on.
What an emotionally difficult day this was for everybody, but especially Bobby, who'd been Thurman's close friend and had delivered this eulogy.
This was 3 days after Thurman Munson was tragically killed in the plane crash in Canton, Ohio.
Nobody's heart was really in the game. I mean, talk about how an event so overshadowed the playing of a baseball game.
Really kind of a tough night. I think nobody really was thinking about playing that ball game, and it was just kind of a dark mood in a way.
The Yankees, at that time in particular, were such a family. I knew for the guys to have to go out on that field and to try to do their best with that empty spot would just be heartbreaking. That was their not just their captain, not just the catcher and the leader, but it was their friend.
We all lined up on the like a World Series. We lined up on the first base dugout, and they announced everybody, and they talked about Thurman. They played the national anthem. And what they had done with the umpires was they had put 2 umpires side by side on home plate. And I remember when I turned around and I looked, the 4 umpires were still there, but there was a gap. And that's when it hit me that he was never, ever going to be there.
My heart just bled for them because I knew that going back to the stadium and playing without him would be the hardest thing that they would ever have to do.
It really took a lot of my competitiveness away from me because I didn't have him there, because I depended on him quite a bit.
Seeing that empty spot and having the fans just stand there with the ovation, and it went on and on. Even if you were strong, which I tried to be for a while, even if you were strong, by the end I think almost everybody was in tears.
I've never seen 50,000, 55,000 people sobbing.
I watched the strongest of the strong break down in tears. Just heartbreak. Those were our buddies, those were Thurman's buddies, not just on the field but off the field.
I recall that game so clearly.
I think we had the option of playing or not playing, and everybody decided to play because we figured that Thurman wanted us to play.
I was trying, but deep down inside, you know, your emotions are playing with you, your brain is playing with you. We played the game almost like going through the motions of that game.
All of a sudden, Bobby was getting the big hits and hitting the ball out.
Bobby Murcer would hit his first home run since returning to the Yankees during that game, which kind of gave the team a little lift.
This is the man who broke down this morning in the middle of his eulogy at Thurman Munson's funeral service. A close friend of Thurman Munson from his earlier days as a Yankee. You could just see that he was ready to erupt.
The last two were knocked in with a single to left field that secured the Yankee victory.
Ball is hit down the left side. It's a fair ball. Going to the corner. Randolph turns at third. Here comes the score. The Yankees win 5-4.
And so the New York Yankees, still the world champions, in an absolutely thrilling game. Look at them out there on a day when they buried their team captain and leader, who tragically died at the age of 32 last Thursday afternoon at the Canton-Akron Regional Airport. And the hero, Bobby Murcer, one of two eulogists for the Yankees today in Canton. The man who broke up, who couldn't go on. Munson, his leader, his friend, the man who meant so much to Bobby Murcer in the formulation of his own career. And it's almost symbolic.
Bobby Murcer knocks in all 5 runs.
Bobby swung and drove it down the left field line, and the tying and the winning run scored in one of the most emotional victories the Yankees ever had.
Bobby just, you know, he picked us all up. He just, you know, he became superhuman that day.
And it was great that Bobby, one of his best friends, had such an outstanding night to do that.
He put us on his shoulders and just, basically took over the whole game.
Watching Bobby do what he did in the game was one of the greatest performances that I had ever seen.
He felt great relief when it was over because it was a game that he wanted to participate in, and he felt it was sort of a tribute to Thurman from the whole team, and he was so happy it ended up the way it did.
For him, it was great. For the team, it was great. For all of us, it was great because, you know, what happened.
My whole family, we sat together and watched it, and there were a lot of tears.
It was surreal, to say the least.
To have Bobby do what he did, what a performance that was.
It made a lot of sense with what happened that night, and it just seemed like it was meant to be.
I remember everybody just congratulating everyone and going back in the clubhouse and just kind of sitting down and just to kind of reflect on the day that we spent.
I felt Thurman's spirit throughout the whole game, and obviously as did Bobby and the rest of the team.
He just was going on sheer emotion for that game.
I'm sure that Thurman had a part in Bobby's performance that night, in his heart, in his bat.
He just said he felt that there was something that happened to him, almost came over him, that was sort of like magical.
That obviously was fitting. It was almost celestial. It was something from heaven, I guess.
Spirit is a strange thing. I think when you believe and when you are that close, it shows through.
Super emotional for everyone.
Dramatic, and it was just a draining day for all of us.
I think that was something that Thurman would have enjoyed. He would not have wanted us to just lay down and not play like we were supposed to.
Something that Bobby and I talked about often, but we never could sort of put our finger on how the events came to happen.
That night was something that, you know, I'll never forget.
We all knew it was all for one guy, and that was Thurman.
It was just sheer emotion and love and respect for some friend, someone who was so close to us. A weekend I'll totally remember the rest of my life.